Alright, welcome back to class. Here today we will talk about spaghetti code a bit for game projects over the last few days. And I'd like to thank the new subscribers for signing on for our FanGame course series on the simple Directmedia Layer. The last few days I think I added like 30 guys or 30 composites of guys to the Sprite sheet. We'll get into the code in a second. This video course series we'll talk about using the simple Directmedia Layer to make a cross-platform game engine for our particular game projects. Here I added some other characters like Thanos and Lilith from the Ghost Rider and Blade series. I added some Friends of Humanity characters, just a few different guys like that. Then I added some Life Foundation soldiers and some possible animation states for the player, as well as some Rayload gang members. I think not tentative, maybe some vampires, and I tried to find some werewolf characters that are relevant to the Marvel series, but it's a little harder than it needs to be, and that's concerned. Alright, so back over to the terminal. Alright, so for our game project, I will also play with some code for this project. For the code for the project, I think I added a player class. So let's look at the player class. Here we're going to use the Vim editor. We type Vim and the name of the file. Let's look at some possible implementation strategies for the player. When we press enter here, we'll look at some controls I think that might be viable for the player class. The thing is, what you might want to do for a game project such as this is to make your code readable. So this class, this is pretty much how your classes are supposed to look. They'll have functions, member functions for the input, the updating, and the drawing. Of course, this is part of this is your game loop. Of course, in your game loop, you will take in input from the users. You will have updates for the screen, and it will draw graphics to the screen. All the classes use that thing. There will be some variables, some data members, which will maybe move into the private section, such as the constructor for the player class. Also, it really depends on the functionality of the game. There are things that when you name variables or data members for variables, they are supposed to have, a decent naming convention that's reliable, where you can look at the variable and tell where it's used. Here we have a player health is set to a value, and it relates to the class. All right, so like we have a getter section here for the getters and the setters. There's a X and a Y, which are not really defined on this class, which we may get into in a bit. Here for this game, we were thinking about having a 12-button interface here, which would support the keyboard as well as the game controller. So we would have the face buttons, of course, if you're familiar with WASD, QWE setup, and the up, down, left, right buttons. Also, we would like to implement some game state systems so we can have menus and quick load states. This would be a decent game for those of you trying to play the game. If you've played the game, I think Mega Man Unlimited. Mega Man Unlimited is made in a simple Directmedia Layer. It's a fan game for Mega Man games. Alright, since we're making on a mutant game, other things you may want to try, what we will try to implement is to access these mutant powers that each one of the players have. These are mutant abilities, such as people who teleport, who fly and levitate, and some of the other alterations for the game characters themselves, such as being able to knock back enemies or charge up attacks, or doing events such as web slinging, as you may have seen from the animations of the characters being wrapped up on the sprite sheet. Alright, so other things that we may want to implement that we'll work on later when we talk about shooting bullets and what have you, is to shoot and fire attacks at different angles. I realized when I was drawing characters that none of the characters could shoot at certain angles. They had weapons and grenades and what have you. They didn't really have the ability to shoot in the X and Y axis, which may be useful for your game projects. Alright, so let's look at another class. I spent some time on let's look at the game class again this time, since we talked a bit about code being readable. Our game class was not really a readable game class. When I used the Vim editor to open the game.cp the game.h file, I tried to think about some of the access specifier data members, the public and the private ones that will be useful for a class related to our class. As before, there will be some material that's always useful, always readable to the player or the enemy, such as there being surfaces or textures, which really wouldn't be in the public section. They would maybe move down here to the private section of the class based on the class. But also there will be some member variables and functions such as the update and draw that may be used just in one class. What people usually do is they would create some type of entity or object class, and they would have all the data members related to the object class in that class. So they'd have, we were pretty sure that there will be some data members that are just relevant to the, to the actual final rendering of the class. If we slow down one class, it should slow down the rest of the class, we hope, for the game, such as regular things used to regulate the frames per second. That may stay in the game class, right? So wherever one controls the game, the final rendering for the game, we regulate the frames per second. The things related to the window or the sprite width of the character, which may be useful to the game class. So the thing is to make the classes readable for useful for when it comes to debugging. So let's look at the game.cpp class, where we try to implement some of these functions for the class here. What we'll eventually have to do is to turn these classes into singleton classes. So there'll be only one instance and one object. So when you create the game class, you create the object of the game class. And of course, we want to make an easy memory management strategy for our game projects. Also, if you are drawing images to the screen in the Directmedia Layer, as you would see in my course series down below in the description, you of course need a source rectangle and a source destination, of course, for drawing images to the screen, and also for collision detection using the Directmedia Layer. So let's look at the class implementation in our class material for the game.cpp file using the Directmedia Layer. Here, as we did before we talked about initialization of these different libraries. Here, where we are implementing the SDL init everything function for the Directmedia Layer, we had enabled some of the earlier classes. We had to enable the use of the image library, so we've declared the SDL image init library. There's actual documentation online if you want to know more about these libraries, these extension libraries for the Directmedia Layer. There's complete free documents for how to initialize the image library, the true text font library, which I do not have initialized here. Well, yes, I do, but some of these take flag, others do not. All right, so what have I done over the last few days? I looked at some other ways of implementing data members for the class. I tried to make it a bit more readable. Some of this code, of course, will be changed. I guess over the next few days, I'll try to take out members and data functions that are not really associated with the class. Here, like this is some code. It's just really copy-paste code that I found that would be useful for the class. But like here, we implemented how if you want to draw an animation for a player, maybe you can see this. If you're not familiar with how to draw animation in Directmedia Layer, first you start with the number of frames that you have, and then the other function SDL, such as SDL get ticks, which regulates the frames per second. What you will pretty much do is you have a frame you start on, and you will you have a delay time, and you will use the modulus operator to divide the number of frames you have by the number of animations. When you do that, it'll display one animation based on you have a value here, you divide by a certain number of frames, and it'll display one frame per animation. So pretty much after you have a texture you draw into the screen, you pretty much you clear the screen using SDL render clear, and then you will use SDL render copy, which requires the renderer, the sprite sheet you got the image from, as we talked about before, your texture rectangles. There'll be a source and destination rectangle, and also where the window will be going to, and then finally you'll, depending on if it's a texture, you'll use SDL render texture to put that on the screen. So that's pretty much how we draw animations in the Directmedia Layer. Simple and easy. If you'd like to know more about that, look at my course series down below in the description. Alright, so we'll go over other functions that we'll have to change, make them look a bit more readable. Here, like in this texture loader function, it does some error checking code. See, in my code, we don't like to use a lot of error checking. I mean, my but I'm glad you do this another way in SDL. You can do error checking, and I like to remove a lot of the comments and things once we get the code to be readable and a workable version of code for the projects. Of course, once you implement and do things on the screen in a simple Directmedia Layer, it's probably better to start with some kind of working code as opposed to having just spaghetti code. Just code. It's not really, it's hard to follow. It's a lot of words and comments and things and to-do lists. In order to do that, sometimes you may have to start over to make workable code that's reasonable for or related to the types of classes that you use in your game projects. Alright, so back over to the game class. I added a player class. I added some animations for the player, and I was really working on a little more graphics for the player, which would make the game a bit more playable in our projects. Also, it'd be a good idea for you, if you have working code, is to store it in a source folder and a separate folder where the code actually works in case you make some type of error or mistake in your project, which is not really so good for you when you want to work on things in your project. Alright, so later we'll get back to working on some graphics and working on some making readable, reliable code using some Directmedia Layer. And if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, put it down in the comments below, and we will correct those comments and errors in our next video, or work on something that you can use for your projects. If you need some templates, you can ask, we can send you a repository of information that you'd like to use. Or if you'd like to know more about just making any type of game, you can look at my video course series down below in the series in the description. And thank you for watching.